saw it on TV, and I says, I got to get that. And they don't make them. You custom build amps?
No, I don't. That's something I've never been thought was very profitable. It's you got. For me, it was a job and not a hobby. You have a lot of hobbyists now that are making these custom amps, and I just
remember Heathkit?
Sure.
I had a friend who had a 212-inch Heathkit. It was almost like a Fender Twin. He built it himself in 1968.
Wow.
But tell us about one of the interesting repair jobs you've had. Doesn't have to be a guitar.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I don't know. I do lots of different things.
Perhaps.
Right now I have a 1940 radio from, it was made in New York, a company called Ansley. And it's just AM and shortwave and a beautiful wooden cabinet, and they have electromagnetic speakers in them, and that's a little different.
And they send it to you to fix?
Yep.
What's wrong with it?
Just capacitors and cleaning.
Humidity?
And, yeah, basically the metal switches and such have oxidized the contact surfaces, and that was the main problem, but then there's always other little issues to take care of it.
Well, I met Steve about 4 years ago, I think it was. I have a Line 6.
Speaking of new technology,
yes,
modeling amplifiers.
It's a Line 6 FlexTone 3, and I'll tell you, it doesn't have any bass response. But anyway, it just quit working, and Steve was the guy who fixed it for me. I think I took it to Zamar. You probably have a contract with all of the local.
Well, I try to help all the local businesses. I've been doing Zamar's repair and Evola. I used to do Bill Kurt's stuff when he was there, and Good News, but they both moved on now. So
Music Makers in Petoskey.
Yep, Music Makers. I work with them. Yeah. I used to be the service manager at Marshall Music back in the 80s, but they take all their repairs down to Lansing to my old shop down there. So.
Is it elderly?
I used to do elderly's repairs when I was in Lansing. I came up from Lansing in 95. But they're mostly all acoustic, and there wasn't a lot of electronic repair with them, but I used to do theirs.
Okay.
Brian, have you had any repairs in the last couple of years?
In the last couple of years, actually, no, because I've been playing more acoustic guitar, which is,
You mic it in?
Pretty much, yeah, which is in less need of repair. And now, when I worked on the road with some different artists and stuff, and I was playing bass and carrying around that old SVT,
oh yeah,
that went in the shop basically once a year just to make sure nothing had jarred loose or anything. So,
yeah.
But I haven't been spending a lot of money on repairs recently.
What kind of PAs?
No offense.
Well, that's all right. I'm kind of, in a lot of respects, I'm like the Maytag repairman in the old commercial. A lot of the new stuff does not need servicing, and a lot of the old stuff's getting too old. I'm doing a lot of vintage restoration. But I'm the last guy standing. There used to be a whole fleet of guys like me. Every music store had a couple of repairmen. Marshall's used to have 5 or 6, and there's very few left now. There's just not much need for it.
Do you still service SROs?
You mean the speakers?
Everybody that has an SRO, yeah, because they had a lifetime warranty.
No, I never did.
But you couldn't find somebody who'd fixed it.
Well, you have to recone those. That takes special parts. And I did some reconing when I worked in Denver, but I haven't done any reconing in Michigan. I send it down to a company in Grand Rapids for reconing for speaker repairs.
Well, Steve, we're going to put your information up on the board. Your
wrong card.
Wrong card?
There you
go.
Okay. I'll tell you, it happens more and more. So yes, and if you have questions on amplifier repairs or old radios or anything electronic,
musical equipment is the theme there. Musical equipment. It could be. I'm doing some old hi-fi stuff right now. I've got an Akai reel-to-reel deck in the shop. I've got a couple of Sansui receivers.
Oh, reel-to-reels. The rotor wheels go out on those, don't they? So they don't. The speed. They doesn't maintain the proper speed.
You need the pinch rollers. The rubber gets hard and the belts get old. And
where do you get? Do they still make those somewhere, or do you have to make your own?
There is a guy in Michigan, actually, who makes replacement parts for the world, really. He's down in Sparta, I believe. I just got in touch with him.
Towards Grand Rapids.
He custom makes some of those rubber parts that you can't buy anymore.
Because I threw away a whole bunch of 7.5-inch reels with stuff on them. Well, they're turning into glycerin. You put them away and store them, and you say, well, I'm going to get back to these someday. And like a friend of mine, we were joking about that because I have cassette tapes too. That we'll probably never. There's so many of them, you know. Just to go to each one, I tried to put some on CD. A friend had a converter, and it's impossible because in order to get the breaks between each song, you can't just let it run. You have to sit there and stop it so that it will have a break. So that when you go to cut number 5, it'll go to number 5. Otherwise, it'll just be all cut 1, and it'll have like 10 songs on there. So that was hard to do, and then the speed started varying.
Yeah.
So, but it says musical electronics repair. I'm not related to Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin.
No.
Though I get lots of fan mail from people who think I am.
Right.
I repair amps, keyboards, PA systems, any audio, any tube and vintage gear. And the phone number to reach Steve is 231-271-3867. And he's got a email address, and I believe this is it, PAIGEPROMUSIC @charter.net. You could read it right there on the bottom of the screen there. All right. Well, thanks, Steve. And where are you going now? You got a job.
I'm going to a church in Grand to finish up a vintage 70s organ that I've been trying to take care of.
It's not a B3.
Not a B3.
Now, is it a handy?
What is the
No,
oldest instrument you ever worked on?
Gee, it's got to be electronic, so it's not that old.
Okay.
Probably 30s, 40s. 40s.
Because a lot of times I see guitars or violins on the Antiques Roadshow, and some of them are really, really old.
Well, those are acoustic instruments, and that's not what I work on. I just do the electronic.
And they have fantastic
Stuff.
prices that they're appraised at too. And
Right, right.
Yeah, I like watching Antique Roadshow too. That's interesting. Well, it was nice having you on the show, Steve. I know you got to go, and we're gonna cut in a minute so we could disconnect. But thank you.
Thank you for inviting
We
me.
hope you come
okay,
back.
thank you, Steve.
My pleasure. Brian, thank
Pleasure
you.
meeting you.
Okay.
My pleasure. Thanks a lot for
We'll
helping
see-
me out on my song.
Sure.
It sounded great.
We'll see you around.
I hope so.
Okay.
I hope so.
Hello, welcome back to Northern Michigan Musicians Journal. We are on Up North Media, Channel 97 Charter, and you can see us 4 times a week sometime. Mary knows when the times are, don't you, Mary?
Yes, it's Friday, Saturday, Monday, and Wednesday, and we're pretty much late night, and we compete with David Letterman and Jay Leno, but
No comparison.
right, Jay Leno is retiring too soon, and
Yeah, I know, possibly because of our show.
yes.
Anyway,
But now we have to face off with Jimmy Fallon too.
yeah, well, you know, I like Conan still.
I do too.
But anyway, we had our primary guest, Brian Nolf, here, and we did have an unexpected guest, Steve Page, who was in the last segment. But now we can give all our attention to Brian, who's played a few songs. We're going to put a few at the end of the show too, Brian. But is there any of those songs have a story or behind them or meaning?
Well, the song that I did called My Niche, that was kind of, I wrote most of the songs on my original album back in 2006. It was a flurry of creativity that I had going, and I actually wrote most of the songs and recorded the album all within 12 months. And My Niche was one of those songs that, living in Nashville all those years.
Was that the first song you did for
That was the first song I did, yeah.
And what was it called again?
My Niche.
My Niche, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's supposed to
Niche. Niche.
But how are you going to rhyme that? So, you know, I'm gonna go redneck and say niche. But anyway, the story behind that song was that, you know, living and working in Nashville, people really want you to. They say, okay, what's your sound? What's your brand?
Oh yeah.
What's your label look like? So that when people, I guess when they go to the record store to find your stuff, they know exactly where to go. And I've always listened to different kinds of music.
It sounds like a marketing thing
Yes,
that
it
you can't
is.
get away from. So you had to develop this, huh?
And I understand that, you know, having a sound that people are familiar with would probably help your fan base.
Okay.
My niche was, I mean, since I was writing all original material and I was pretty much doing it for myself, that was kind of my answer to, you know, the first few lines of the song is, are you traditional, are you contemporary, tenor, bass, or baritone? It's kind of that, what do you do, what's your pigeonhole, where do we put you, so that people know where to find you or we know who to call.
Yeah.
And my niche was kind of my way of saying, I've listened to and sang all different kinds of music my entire life, and if I can do all of it, and people are like, no, 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 you got to narrow down what you do. And I thought, well, if I can do all of it, and I get called by everybody for everything, what's wrong with that? And so that's kind of what that song is about. And I also got to mention my hometown. It's not easy finding a rhyme for Cadillac, but I did it. So.
What rhymes with Cadillac?
Let's see, Cadillac, packed. To the day I packed.
Cadillac
packed.
Okay.
That's my claim to fame is rhyming Cadillac.
That's my niche. Please don't beach.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Well, that's great. And this is one of your CDs. And are these distributed anywhere in the local area yet?
They are not distributed in the area as hard copy. They are available online at about every download store on the planet.
Ah, okay.
CD Baby, iTunes, Amazon, it's all over the place. Spotify, go anywhere, you'll find it. If you Google Brian Glenn or Brian Glenn Nolf.
Oh, go Google Brian Glenn. Now,
Okay.
he had a stage name in Nashville. Is that what it was?
Glenn's
Brian?
my middle name.
Oh,
Okay.
Brian
So
Glenn
Brian
Nolf.
Glenn Nolf is my full name. But I went by Brian Glenn from about 1995 until I relocated up here just 8 months ago.
Okay.
So if you Google Brian Glenn Nolf, which is my full name, you'll find me one way or the
Okay,
other.
great. Well, we'll have that up on the graphics on the show here. And so, yeah, having a niche, that's something that performers don't always think about. But you never did narrow it down then. You do everything then.
Well, what the song is saying, they're saying, is this your niche? And I say, yes. Well, how about this? Yes. How about this? Yes.
Well,
do all that, you know. Play the different instruments, do the different kinds of music. It keeps your phone ringing when you're down there.
It's like you have to have...
Nice wallet.
It's like you have to have about 5 different cards.
That's right.
Somebody told me, because I did brochures, and they said, you can't put all this on one brochure. So then I have like 5 different brochures that I say, well, here, look at this one, look at this one, you know, and that actually isn't even music. I have just one card for music, you know. But,
if you can do a lot of different things and do them all well, then I don't see any reason not to, as long as you can market it
I think it's
successfully.
feasible, though my dad always said, stick to one thing, you know. That's probably why I'm not a musician full time, you know, back when I could have had a chance. Went to college and here I am. So Mary, you got a lot of questions from Brian. What were you asking me earlier?
Okay, about the songs. What was your first song? Was my niche, right?
Yeah.
And then what was the second song?
The second song, I did a song also original that I wrote called "By Love I Mean You." It's about a man who's tripping over his tongue trying to get the words out right to the woman he loves. And he eventually says, by love, I mean you. I love you.
Okay. And then what was the song that you were nominated for the Grammy? I saw it on the website.
That was for an album.
Okay.
That was for Marty Stewart's Live at the Ryman. It was a bluegrass album nominated in the bluegrass category.
Okay, good. And when was this?
That was 2006, I believe.
Okay.
That he was nominated along with the typical 4 other nominees for Album of the Year in the bluegrass category, and which was kind of full circle for Marty because he started in bluegrass and then was considered kind of a rockabilly country artist. So for him to be nominated for a bluegrass album all those years later was unusual, but I was nominated as a part of that.
Okay,
Was it a song you wrote?
No, I was nominated for the album itself.
You played on the album?
Right, I played and sang on the album.
Oh,
So
excellent.
the band, Marty and the band were nominated as a group for the album.
Okay,
What
good.
studio did you guys do the album in? Was it one studio or a variety of studios? Was it a well-known?
Because of the name Live at the Ryman, it was actually, most of it was recorded actually live at the Ryman Auditorium in Nashville. It was an accident.
Okay.
It really was. We went out, there's a series at the Ryman during the summers called Bluegrass Nights at the Ryman. And they would have Del McCurry, Ricky Skaggs, bluegrass artists. Well, they had Marty on that series. And our sound technician went in and put a CD in and just popped it in and hit record when our show started, and that became the album. It was nothing we intended to have happen. It became the album and then got nominated for a Grammy.
And you didn't have a production company or anything. You just had your sound technician doing the routine storage of the show.
When we decided to make an album out of it, we had some remixing and a little bit of studio touching up, but nothing big, nothing major.
So it was pretty much acoustic and not too much electronics.
No, it was pretty much an acoustic record. Marty had Uncle Josh Graves, who used to play with, he used to play with Lester Flatt back in the day.
Okay.
He was a guest, and so that was nice because Uncle Josh has since passed. But the acoustics at the Ryman are so incredible that we were able to actually catch a very good live performance, and it turned into an album. So,
And were
you never know what can happen.
Yeah, that is excellent.
Hit record every time, 'cause you never know.
Okay, and then your other songs?
I did a song called Eve.
Okay.
Now, I'm glad you asked about that because I just wanted to explain. My sister asked me one time, she's like, are you blaming women for what happened in the garden? I said, no, not at all. I said, I think it's funny that women got blamed for it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
And so I'm kind of poking fun at the idea that I say, Eve, what did you do? When actually it was, I thought it was kind of my play on the idea that a lot of times women do get blamed for the folly of men, I think.
Right.
And so that was what that song is about. And I'm trying to think and another song called The Whole World Is Falling in Love. There was an 80s country star by the name of Deborah Allen.
Yeah,
Baby,
I remember
I
that.
lied.
Yeah.
Baby, I Lied, and I've Been Wrong Before. And she wrote a lot of big hits for some other country artists. And I had the opportunity to write a song with her, and that was the song The Whole World Is Falling in Love.
Oh, great.
You've got a lot more experience under your belt than a lot of our guests do. That's exciting.
I've been very fortunate.
You were up there, so what's your next move? Yeah.
Well, my next move is to do what I'm doing now as well as I can and as often as I can. I am someone who, I like to be singing 30 or 40 hours a week when you roll them all together. If I'm not, I feel like I don't do it as well as I could. It's a very good exercise for me. So I want to play weddings, coffee houses, bars, casinos, wineries, anywhere where they'll have me. What I typically do is I walk in with a guitar. I have my own PA if they need it. I will do a 3-hour set, typically 2 to 3 hours. I'm doing a private party tomorrow in Leland. Thursday I'm playing at Park Shore. Friday I'm playing at a place called Gino's in Thompsonville. And Saturday I'm playing with Ron Getz down at the Holiday Inn playing bass.
Cool.
So it's just kind of all over the place. But I want to play and sing as much as I can. And what I'm really enjoying is that I have a very broad repertoire.
Yes.
I'll go from, and you heard that, I'll go from Kenny Chesney to Neil Diamond to Luke Bryan to Bob Seger to Frank Sinatra.
Yeah,
I mean,
you
just all over the
seem
place.
to be all over. And then I noticed on the website you were with another guest of ours over this weekend, Miriam Pico.
Miriam Pico.
Oh yeah, Miriam.
One of the most wonderful singers. When I heard in this town, I thought, wow. I said, no, there is a singer. There's a vocalist. And I had an opportunity to sing at a beach wedding with her in Empire last Saturday. So it was a pleasure.
She can do everything. She's one of my heroes.
Fantastic. Yes.
She was a lot of fun to work with, and she's going places. She's done a lot of things in this area in the last year.
And deservedly so. Miriam is very welcoming to the people around her.
Yes, she is.
She's not one to push anybody aside, and that bringing her people in close to her like that has made her very successful in this area. And
yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Hi, Miriam.
Miriam,
Love you.
And so, when you play with bands, do you play bass, or when you play with your own group of people? Like for a wedding, technically, unless you were doing the ceremony, you would have a band for the reception, right?
Oddly enough, some people have me just the ceremony, some just the reception, some both. Oddly enough, I have not played a wedding yet or booked a wedding this year where I'm actually working with a band.
Really?
They're actually having me do the wedding as a single, and about 3 of the weddings that I booked have me doing the reception as a single.
Do you use a drum machine or a harmonizer?
I don't have any bells and whistles like that.
Okay.
It's just me chunking on a guitar and singing and trying to keep the energy going. And it seems to work pretty well.
Well, it sounds...
Now, I do work with bands where I play bass, but that's once in a while.
Yeah, I've heard Ron Getz at the Holiday Inn before.
I'm playing bass
Very
with
good.
Ron. Yeah. It'd be Ron and Tim Wire and Roger Tarks and myself.
Okay.
That'd be fun.
Well, is there anything that you'd want to say to the audience or any special people out there in TV land?
Well, I guess, you know, if I have a message today, it's have guitar, will travel.
Okay, who were your influences for your music?
My number one influence was Ricky Skaggs.
Okay, he's great.
Back in 1982, I heard Highway 40 Blues, and it was all over. I fell apart and became a country music fan and a big fan of his. And he has been a big influence. Ricky Skaggs, Steve Wariner, Vince Gill, a lot of the guys who played guitar and sang, like I'm doing now.
Did you ever hear of Larry Lee Atkins and the Hanging Tree?
I have heard of them.
You have?
Yes.
Wow. Now that goes back to the 80s. Well, my roommate was the drummer for that band.
Oh, okay.
And that back in the 80s.
And what's his name?
Rick Forries.
Okay.
Good drummer. I don't know where he is these days.
Yeah.
But Larry Lee was on Billboard. He missed it. Razzie Bailey was number 100. And Larry Lee's song, Hey Mister, I'm in Love with Your Wife. That was 101.
Well, a title
But
like
it was
that,
a
how can
funny-
you not break into the top 100?
it was a good song. It was funny, you know. But I thought of another question to ask you. What type of PA do you use?
I have a pretty vintage PA that I actually got from my brother. I was doing a duo with Ron Getz a couple weeks ago, and he looked at that and he said, "Boy, that's old school. It's an old Trainer PA head."
Wow.
And with some Black Widow speakers.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's doing the job just fine. And, you know, I could go out and get the brand new QSC, and I one day